The sound came first, a tearing noise that split the sky open like paper, then the fireball. Everyone in Dusthaven Mining Colony stopped what they were doing. Workers dropped their tools. Supervisors froze mid-sentence. Children pointed at the sky as a Galactic Union transport ship fell through the thin atmosphere of Belrath 7, trailing smoke and flame. It hit the worker housing district. The explosion threw dust and debris 100 meters into the air. Buildings collapsed. Power lines snapped. And beneath the twisted metal and broken stone, people began to scream. Daniel Webb was eating lunch when it happened. He was a contractor from Earth, hired by the Galactic Union to advise on demolition work. At 47 years old, he had seen plenty of disasters: the Appalachian collapse, the Luna Dome failure, the Mars Rift mining incident. He knew the sound of a catastrophe before anyone else did. He was running toward the crash site before the dust had settled. The rescue team arrived 30 minutes later. Senior Coordinator Thrillix led them, her insectoid body moving with precise clicking steps. Behind her came a dozen workers from different species: Vethrani amphibians with thick gray skin, Rilani insects like Thrillix. A few others Daniel did not recognize. They set up a perimeter, they deployed sensors, they followed procedure. Daniel stood at the edge of the debris field and watched them work. His scarred hands hung at his sides. His eyes moved constantly, studying the wreckage. He was calculating weight, angles, stress points. He had been doing this for 20 years. Thrillix approached him. Her mandibles clicked as she spoke through her translator. "Human consultant, you should remain at the safe perimeter. The fusion core is leaking. Radiation levels are dangerous." Daniel nodded but did not move. The screams from beneath the rubble had not stopped. Thrillix received a report from her team. She listened, then turned to address everyone. "The main housing block has collapsed onto a group of Yanari workers. 17 confirmed alive beneath the debris. However, radiation levels in the collapse zone are beyond safe limits. Standard protocol requires us to wait for specialized equipment. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours." 6 hours? Daniel looked at the wreckage. He could hear them crying in there, small voices, frightened voices. The Yanari were a fragile species, thin exoskeletons. Delicate bodies. They would not survive 6 hours under that weight. "The specialized equipment will allow us to work safely," Thrillix continued. "Until then, all personnel will maintain the perimeter." A Vethrani medical officer named Brel raised his webbed hand. "Coordinator, the Yanari cannot survive that long. Their respiratory systems will fail under pressure within 3 to 4 hours. Thrillix's antennae twitched. "I am aware, protocol is clear. We do not risk additional lives." Daniel walked forward. He did not announce himself. He did not ask permission. He simply started walking toward the debris pile. Thrillix noticed him immediately. "Human consultant, stop. The radiation levels will cause severe cellular damage within minutes." Daniel kept walking. "You will die if you enter that zone." Daniel stopped. He turned to look at Thrillix. His face was calm. "Then I will die." He removed his safety vest. He removed his gloves. He removed everything that would slow him down. The rescue team watched in silence. Daniel reached the edge of the debris pile. He studied it for a long moment. Then he grabbed a chunk of broken metal and threw it aside. Then another. Then another. He began to dig. Brel moved closer to Thrillix. His voice was low. "Humans are from a death world. Their bodies can endure punishment that would kill other species instantly, but this is extreme even for them." Thrillix did not respond. She watched Daniel work. The human moved with a strange kind of purpose, not fast but steady. He cleared rubble with his bare hands. When he reached a beam that was too heavy, he braced himself beneath it and pushed. The beam shifted. His muscles strained. Veins stood out on his neck. The beam moved. A young Rilani rescue worker named Chell stepped forward. "Should we help him?" Thrillix held up a limb to stop her. "Protocol forbids it. The radiation zone is too dangerous." but he is in the radiation zone. He is human, it is different. Chell did not understand what that meant. She watched Daniel disappear into a gap in the wreckage. His body fit through spaces that seemed too small. He moved like a creature that had done this before. Minutes passed. Then Daniel's voice echoed from inside the rubble. I found one, female Yanari. She is alive, but her legs are trapped. Thrillix activated her communicator. Can you free her? There was a long pause. Yes. More. Sounds came from inside the debris pile. Metal groaning, stone shifting, and beneath it all a low, steady grunt of effort, human effort. Then silence. Then movement at the gap in the debris. A small figure emerged. A young Yanari female covered in dust and blood, crawling on her arms because her legs were crushed. Behind her came Daniel. He was bleeding from his hands. His face was red with strain. He carried the Yanari the last few meters and set her down gently in front of the rescue team. There are more, he said. Then he turned around and went back into the wreckage. Thrillix stared at the spot where he had disappeared. Her mandibles clicked slowly. Brel stood beside her. Coordinator, what do we do? Thrillix did not answer for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, we watch. And they did. Darkness swallowed Daniel whole. Inside the debris pile there was no light, only the sound of settling metal, the smell of smoke and fuel, the taste of dust in his mouth. He moved by feel, running his hands along broken walls and twisted beams, searching for the gaps that would lead him deeper. His training guided him. 20 years of demolition work, 15 years of rescue operations. He knew how buildings fell. He knew where the air pockets formed. He knew where survivors would be. He found the second one within minutes. A Yanari male, older than the first. He was pinned beneath a fallen cabinet but otherwise unharmed. Daniel lifted the cabinet with both hands and the Yanari scrambled free. Go toward the light, Daniel told him. The rescue team is waiting. The Yanari did not speak. He simply stared at Daniel with large, frightened eyes. Then he crawled toward the distant glow of the opening. Daniel went deeper. Outside, the rescue team watched the thermal imaging on their screens. Daniel's heat signature moved through the debris like a ghost. Slow, steady, relentless. Brel stood beside Thrillix, his webbed hands clasped behind his back. Coordinator, I should explain something about humans. Thrillix's antennae twitched. I know about humans, deathworld species, high-gravity adaptation, elevated aggression. That is not what I mean. Brel pulled up data on his tablet. Humans are persistence predators. On their home world, they hunted by chasing prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are not faster than other species. They are not stronger, but they do not stop there. Bodies are designed to keep functioning long after other creatures would fail. Thrillix watched Daniel's thermal signature on the screen. He has been in there for 40 minutes. The radiation levels should have caused collapse by now. They should have, Brel agreed. But humans have an unusual relationship with pain. They feel it as strongly as any species, perhaps more strongly, but they can choose to ignore it. Their minds can override their bodies in ways that seem impossible. Why? Brel was quiet for a moment. I do not know. Perhaps it is a survival mechanism from their harsh world. Perhaps it is something else, but I have read the reports. Humans have been documented lifting vehicles to save their children, running on broken legs, fighting with mortal wounds. They call it adrenaline, but I think it is more than that. I think it is will. On the screen, Daniel's thermal signature stopped moving. Inside the debris, Daniel had found the main pocket of survivors. 5 of them, 4 Yanari and 1 Vithrani. They huddled together in a small space beneath a collapsed floor section. The Vithrani, a supervisor named Goran, was badly injured. His arm hung at a wrong angle and dark blood leaked from a wound on his head. The Yanari saw Daniel and screamed. They had never seen a human up close. The stories said humans were monsters, brutal creatures from a world of endless violence, predators who hunted for pleasure. Daniel held up his hands. I am here to help. I'm going to get you out. Goran pushed himself up on his good arm. His translator crackled. You are human. Yes. Why are you here? Humans do not serve the Galactic Union. You have no obligation to us. Daniel did not answer immediately. He looked around the small space, studying the debris above them. A massive section of hull plating formed the ceiling. If he could lift it, they could escape through a gap to the left. The plating weighed at least 400 kilograms. Can you walk? Daniel asked Goran. No, my legs are damaged. Then you will need to crawl, all of you. When I lift the ceiling, you go through the gap. Do not stop. Do not look back. Just move. The Yanari stared at him. One of them, a young female, spoke in a trembling voice. You cannot lift that. It is too heavy. Daniel looked at the ceiling. She was right. It was too heavy for a normal person. He positioned himself beneath the plating. He planted his feet. He placed his hands against the cold metal. When I say go, you move. Goran watched him with something that might have been fear or wonder. Human, why are you doing this? Daniel closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter. He thought about the mining accident that took her life. He thought about finding her body 3 days later, alone in the dark, because no one had come for her. Because no one should die alone in the dark, he said. Then he lifted. His muscles screamed, his spine compressed. He felt something tear in his shoulder. Blood vessels burst in his eyes, turning the whites red. The weight was impossible. The weight was crushing him. But the ceiling moved. Go, Daniel screamed. Go now. The survivors scrambled. Goran dragged himself forward on his arms. The Yanari crawled over each other in their panic. One by one, they disappeared through the gap. Daniel held the ceiling for 30 seconds, 40, 50. His arms began to shake. His vision blurred. His body was failing. The last Yanari made it through the gap. Daniel released the ceiling. It crashed down behind him, sealing the space forever. He collapsed to his knees. He could not feel his arms. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped animal. Blood dripped from his nose. But they were out. He took a breath, then another, then he stood up. There were more survivors deeper in the wreckage. He could hear them crying. Daniel wiped the blood from his face and kept moving. The deeper Daniel went, the darker it became. Light did not reach this part of the collapse. The air was thick with dust and the smell of burning fuel. Radiation warnings would have been screaming on his equipment if he still had any, but he had left all of that behind at the surface. He was alone now, truly alone. Daniel moved through the wreckage by memory and instinct. His hands felt along the walls, searching for openings. His ears listened for voices. His body had stopped complaining about the pain. It had gone numb, which was probably not a good sign. He thought about Earth. He thought about the Appalachian collapse of 2187. A mining operation had gone wrong and buried 3,000 workers under a mountain of rock and machinery. Daniel had been part of the rescue team. They had worked for 9 days straight. No sleep, no rest, just digging. They had saved 800 people. They had lost 2,200. Daniel had found his daughter. Among the dead. Her name was Lucy. She was 19 years old. She had taken a summer job at the mining facility to help pay for school. Daniel had told her it was safe. He had told her the company had good safety records. He had been wrong. When he found her body, she was curled up in a small space beneath a collapsed beam. She had survived the initial collapse. She had lived for 3 days in the dark, waiting for someone to find her. But no one came in time. She died alone, scared in the darkness. Daniel never forgave himself. A sound pulled him back to the present, a voice, small and frightened. He followed it through a narrow gap between 2 fallen support beams. The gap was barely wide enough for his shoulders. He had to turn sideways and squeeze through, feeling the rough metal scrape against his skin. On the other side, he found her. A Yanari child, smaller than the others. She was trapped beneath a piece of fallen equipment, crying softly in the darkness. Daniel knelt beside her. "I am here, I am going to help you." The child looked at him with huge, terrified eyes. "Are you a monster?" Daniel almost laughed. "No, I am just a human. The stories say humans are monsters. Stories are sometimes wrong." He examined the equipment, pinning her down. It was heavy, but not impossible. He found a leverage point and positioned himself. "When I lift this, you crawl out. Can you do that?" The child nodded. Daniel lifted. His torn muscles screamed. His damaged shoulder burned, but the equipment moved and the child scrambled free. She did not run away. She stood there looking at Daniel with a strange expression. "You are hurt," she said. Daniel looked down at himself. Blood soaked his shirt. His hands were raw and bleeding. His eyes were still red from the burst blood vessels. He probably looked terrifying. "I am fine," he lied. "Why did you come for me? The others did not come." Daniel was quiet for a moment. He thought about Lucy, about finding her alone in the dark. "Because no one should be alone in the dark," he said, "especially not children." The child reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak and small, but it was warm. "My name is Scylla," she said. "I am Daniel." "Thank you, Daniel." He led her toward the exit path, but before they could reach it, the ground shook. An aftershock. The wreckage groaned and shifted. Metal screamed against metal. Daniel grabbed Scylla and covered her with his body as debris rained down around them. When the shaking stopped, Daniel looked up. The exit was blocked. "No," he whispered. He examined the new debris pile. Massive, too heavy to move by himself, they were trapped. Scylla began to cry again. "Are we going to die?" Daniel looked at her. He thought about Lucy. He thought about all the people he had failed to save over the years. He thought about the promises he had made to himself. "No," he said, "we are not going to die." He did not know if that was true, but he said it anyway. He began to dig again. His hands tore at the rubble. His body screamed at him to stop, but he kept going. Minutes passed, hours maybe, he lost track of time. And then he heard voices, coming from the other side of the debris. "Hello," Daniel shouted. "Is someone there?" A pause, then a voice responded. "Human, is that you?" It was Goran, the Vethrani supervisor he had saved earlier. "Goran, the exit is blocked. There is a child with me." Another pause, then Goran's voice again. "We are on the other side. We can hear you, but the debris is too heavy. We cannot move it." Daniel looked at the pile. He looked at Scylla. He made a decision. "I am going to lift it," he said. "When I do, take the child and run." Goran's voice was uncertain. "Human, that pile weighs more than 1,000 kilograms. You cannot lift it." Daniel placed his hands on the debris. He planted his feet. He took a deep breath. "Watch me." Chell had never seen anything like this. She stood at the edge of the safety perimeter, her compound eyes fixed on the thermal display. The human's heat signature was deep inside the wreckage now. He had been in there for over 2 hours. The radiation levels in that zone would kill a R'Lani in minutes. They would kill a Vethrani in less than an hour. The human was still moving. "How is he still alive?" she asked. Brel stood beside her, his gray amphibian skin glistening with nervous moisture. "Humans are resilient. Their cells repair damage faster than most species, but even they have limits." "He has exceeded those limits." "Yes, he has." On the display, the human's thermal signature had stopped moving. He was in a fixed position near the deepest part of the collapse zone. His body temperature was elevated, which meant he was exerting himself heavily. Coordinator Thrillix approached them. Her mandibles clicked. "Rapidly, a sign of stress. Report." Brel gestured to the display. "The human has located another survivor, a Yanari child, but the exit route has been blocked by an aftershock. They are trapped." "How long until the specialized equipment arrives?" 3 hours. Thrillix was silent for a moment. "The child will not survive 3 hours." No, Brel agreed. She will not. Chell watched the thermal display. The human's signature was pulsing now. He was doing something, she could not tell what. Coordinator, she said. The human is trying to move the debris. Thrillix looked at the display. That debris pile weighs over 1,000 kilograms. He cannot move it. But even as she spoke, something changed on the display. The debris pile shifted, just a little, just enough. And then the child's heat signature began to move, away from the human, toward the exit. He is lifting it, Chell whispered. He is holding it up while the child escapes. The rescue team gathered around the display. No one spoke. They watched in silence as the small figure of the Yanari child crawled through the gap the human had created. Goran's voice crackled over the communicator. The child is through, she is safe. But the human's signature was not moving. Human, Goran's voice again. Release the debris, get out of there. No response. On the display, the human's thermal signature began to change. His body temperature was dropping. His movements had stopped completely. He is trapped, Brel said quietly. The debris collapsed on him when he could no longer hold it. Chell felt something she had never felt before. A tightness in her thorax, a burning behind her eyes. She did not know what it was. He is still alive, she said. The thermal signature is still there. Barely. Thrillix turned away from the display. Her antennae lay flat against her head. There is nothing we can do. The radiation levels are lethal. We must wait for the equipment. Chell stared at her. He did not wait for equipment. He is human. They are different. Different how? Chell's voice rose. She had never spoken to a superior like this before. He bleeds. He breaks. He feels pain. He is dying in there alone because he chose to save lives that were not his responsibility. How is that different? Thrillix did not answer. Brel spoke softly. The Rilani have a word for this, Kethvar. It means one who walks toward death for. Others, it is the highest honor among your people. Thrillix's mandibles clicked slowly. That is a word from the old texts. We do not use it anymore. Perhaps we should. The display flickered. The human's thermal signature was fading. Chell made a decision. She reached up and removed her safety helmet, then her radiation vest, then her protective gloves. Thrillix's head snapped toward her. What are you doing? I am going to help him. You will die. Maybe, Chell began walking toward the debris field, but I will not let him die alone. Thrillix raised a limb to stop her. Rescue worker Chell, I order you to stand down. Chell did not stop. She kept walking. Her bare feet crossed the safety line and entered the radiation zone. Behind her she heard voices, arguments, protests, and then something else. Footsteps. She looked back. Brel had removed his equipment. He was following her. Behind him another rescue worker, then another, then another. One by one, the team stripped off their protective gear and walked into the danger zone. Thrillix stood alone at the perimeter. Her antennae trembled. Her mandibles opened and closed without sound. 11 rescue workers entered the radiation zone that day. None of them were human. Chell found the gap in the debris and squeezed through. The darkness swallowed her. The heat was oppressive. The air tasted like poison. She found Daniel 3 minutes later. He was lying beneath a pile of rubble. A massive beam had fallen across his back. His arms were stretched out in front of him, still positioned as if he was holding something up. His eyes were closed. But he was breathing. Human, Chell said. Daniel, can you hear me? His eyes opened, just a crack. He looked at her with red, bloodshot eyes. The child, he whispered. Is she safe? Yes, she is safe. They all are. Daniel smiled. It was a small, tired smile. Good, he said. Then he lost consciousness. Chell began digging him out. Brel arrived moments later and helped her. Together, they lifted the beam off Daniel's broken body. They carried him toward the light. Sunlight hurt. Daniel felt it on his face before he understood what it was. Warm, bright. After hours in the darkness, it felt like fire against his skin. Hands were carrying him, many hands. Some were small and chitinous like insect limbs. Others were large and webbed like amphibian appendages. All of them were. Gentle. He tried to open his eyes but could only manage a crack. The world was blurry. Shapes moved around him. Voices spoke in languages he did not understand. Then a familiar voice. "Human Daniel, stay awake, we are almost out." Chell, the young Relani rescue worker. She was beside him, her compound eyes reflecting the light. "Why?" Daniel managed to whisper. "Why did you come?" Chell was quiet for a moment. "You taught us something. We did not want to forget the lesson." They emerged from the debris field into chaos. The rescue team was waiting at the perimeter. Medical staff rushed forward with equipment. Alien doctors began scanning Daniel's body, their faces growing more concerned with each reading. Severe radiation exposure, multiple organ damage, cellular degradation in progress. The lead doctor, a species Daniel did not recognize, shook his head. He should not be alive. But he was. They loaded Daniel onto a medical transport. Before they could close the doors, a small figure pushed through the crowd. Scylla, the Yanari child he had saved. She climbed onto the transport and sat beside him. Her tiny hand found his bloody, broken fingers and held them. "You saved me," she said simply. Daniel tried to smile. It hurt. Everything hurt. "I told you, no one dies alone in the dark." Scylla did not let go of his hand for the entire trip to the medical facility. At the perimeter, Thrillix watched the transport leave. Her antennae were completely still, a sign of deep contemplation in her species. Brel approached her. "Coordinator, the rescue is complete. All 17 survivors have been recovered. No fatalities." Thrillix nodded slowly. "And our team?" 11 workers entered the radiation zone. All have been treated for exposure. There will be long-term effects, but all are expected to survive. "Good." Brel hesitated. "Coordinator, about the human." Thrillix turned to look at him. "The medical team says the radiation damage is severe. His lifespan has been significantly shortened. He may have lost 20 years, perhaps more." Thrillix was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer. He knew, when he entered the debris field, he knew what it would cost him. "Yes. And he did it anyway." "Yes." Thrillix looked at the spot where Daniel had first removed his safety equipment and walked toward the wreckage. The other rescue workers had not. Understood then, they had backed away. They had watched a human walk toward certain death and done nothing. But that had changed. "Brel," Thrillix said, "I have been a rescue coordinator for 34 years. I have worked with over 50 different species. I have seen courage and cowardice in equal measure." "Yes, coordinator. I have never seen anything like today." Brel nodded. "Humans are remarkable." Thrillix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "They are terrifying, and I do not mean that as an insult." She paused. "When I was young, I read about human history, their wars, their violence, their capacity for destruction. I believed they were a species to be feared and contained." "And now?" Thrillix looked at the debris field. At the collapsed buildings where 17 lives had been saved by a single human who refused to let strangers die alone. "Now I think I understand them better. Their capacity for destruction comes from the same place as their capacity for sacrifice. They feel everything deeply. Pain, loss, love. When they decide something matters, they will burn themselves to ash for it." "Is that not dangerous?" "Extremely." Thrillix turned to face Brel. "But today, that dangerous nature saved 17 lives, including a child who would have died alone in the dark." Brel was quiet. "Send a report to Galactic Union Command," Thrillix continued. "Full details of the incident. I want it on record what the human did today. I want every species in the Union to know." "They may not believe it." "They will when they see the thermal imaging footage." Thrillix began walking toward the command center. "And Brel, Request additional human consultants for our team, as many as they will send. Brell's eyes widened. Coordinator, the protocols discourage working with humans. Thrillix stopped walking. She looked back at Brell. The protocols also told me to let 17 people die while we waited for equipment. Her antennae rose. Today, I learned that protocols can be wrong, and I learned that sometimes the most important thing is not following the rules. It is doing what is right. She resumed walking. Request the humans, Brell. I want to learn from them. Brell watched her go. Then he looked at the debris field one more time. Somewhere in the distance, a medical transport was carrying a broken human toward a hospital. A human who had given years of his life to save people he had never met, people who were not even his own species. Brell had studied humans for decades. He had thought he understood them. He was beginning to realize he had barely scratched the surface. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Daniel woke slowly, swimming up from a deep well of darkness. His body felt strange, heavy in some places, numb in others. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself in a white room filled with soft light and the quiet hum of medical equipment. He was alive. That was surprising. The first thing he noticed after the room was the gifts. They covered every surface. Small sculptures made of polished stone, woven fabrics in bright colors, containers of food he did not recognize, drawings made by children's hands. He stared at them for a long time. A nurse entered. She was Vethrani with smooth gray skin and large dark eyes. She smiled when she saw him awake. "Good morning, human. You have been asleep for many days." "How many?" 19. Daniel processed this. "The survivors, the ones I pulled out, are they okay?" The nurse's smile widened. "They are well. They have been coming to visit you every day. The gifts are from them and from others." "Others?" "The story of what you did has spread. Beings from across the colony have been leaving gifts. They call you the man who would not stop." Daniel did not know what to say to that. He looked at the drawings on his bedside table. One of them showed a crude figure holding up a ceiling while smaller figures escaped beneath. A child had drawn it. Scylla had drawn it. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Coordinator Thrillix entered, her insected body moving with precise steps. She looked different from the last time Daniel had seen her. Her antennae were raised and her posture was less rigid. "Human Consultant Webb, you are awake." "Apparently." Thrillix approached his bed. She stood there for a moment, her mandibles clicking softly. Then she spoke. "I am required to inform you that your actions during the rescue operation violated 17 Galactic Union safety protocols. You entered a restricted radiation zone without authorization. You ignored direct orders from a superior officer. You endangered your own life unnecessarily." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand." "You have been officially reprimanded. This reprimand will be entered into your permanent record." "I understand." Thrillix reached into a pouch on her thorax and removed a small object. It was a medal, round, made of silver metal, with a symbol etched into its surface that Daniel did not recognize. "This is the Coordinator's commendation. It is the highest honor a rescue team can bestow." She placed it on his bed. "You have earned it." Daniel looked at the medal, then at Thrillix. "I thought I violated 17 protocols." "You did," Thrillix's antennae twitched. "But protocols are not the same as principles. You violated our rules. You upheld our values." She paused. "The Galactic Union Rescue Division has decided that you will never be permitted to work with our teams again." Daniel had expected that. "I understand." "However," Thrillix leaned closer, 14 of my rescue workers have requested transfer to human integrated units. Chell has applied to study human emergency response techniques on Earth. The Yanari government has formally requested a human advisory team for their mining colonies." She straightened up. "You have changed things, human, whether you meant to or not." Daniel did not know how to respond. He simply nodded. Thrillix moved toward the door. She paused before leaving. Your species is terrifying, she said. You feel pain like anyone else, you break like anyone else, but you do not stop, you cannot stop, and somehow that makes others want to follow you. Her antennae rose. I do not understand it, but I respect it. She left. Daniel sat in silence for a long time. He looked at the medal, at the gifts, at the drawings. Then Scylla arrived. She entered quietly, her small body slipping through the doorway like a shadow. She did not speak. She simply climbed onto a chair beside his bed and sat there, watching him with her large, dark eyes. Daniel understood. The Yanari processed difficult emotions through silent presence. Words were not needed, just being together was enough. They sat like that for an hour, maybe more. Finally, Scylla spoke. Are you going to die? Daniel considered lying, but he could not. Someday, the radiation damaged my body. I will not live as long as I would have otherwise. How much time did you lose? The doctors say maybe 20 years. Scylla was quiet. Then she said, you gave 20 years for us. I gave them for everyone I could not save before. Daniel thought of Lucy, of all the others. It was not a sacrifice, it was a debt. Scylla did not fully understand, but she reached out and took his hand anyway. Her grip was small and warm. Later that night, Goran visited. He brought a bottle of something from his homeworld. It smelled like burnt metal and flowers. They drank together in silence for a while. Then Goran asked the question that had been bothering him. You said no one should die alone in the dark, but you were willing to die alone in the dark for us. Why? Daniel took a long drink. He thought about his daughter, about the dark space where he found her body, about all the years he had spent trying to make up for arriving too late. I was alone, Daniel said finally, but you were not, that is the point. Goran did not understand, not completely. But he stayed anyway. They drank until morning. And when Daniel finally fell asleep, it was not alone, not anymore.